to share with you the tips this morning. So we're going to cover what is a brand, how do you become a brand, how do you reinforce it, how do you communicate it. So to kick off, I want to ask you, let me get into my chat, or I suppose, Trace, if you can maybe manage, because I can't get into my chat if I'm sharing, think about some of the brands or the branded products you've used since you woke up this morning. What brands have you come into contact with? It could be something you had for breakfast, something you're wearing. It could be a technology device. Trace, can you put in the chat one or two brands? What have you come into contact with today? Well, if no one wants to share, I will fill in the blank for you, seeing as that it's a little maybe more challenging in terms of.
So we've had Samsung,
right.
Apple.
Beautiful. So if I take I don't know if you can see it. So if I take my Apple iPhone and I say to you, what words or images or experiences, what comes into your mind when you hear Apple? And I'll just move ahead in terms of, so we can get maximum time. Now, if I said to you, think about what words come into your mind, would you think about things like Steve Jobs, like innovation, sleek design, and expensive always comes up? So if we really think about it, then what is a brand? Because a brand is the promise of the value you're going to get from those devices. It commands higher value. We are going to pay a premium, and a brand creates an emotional bond. So what do I mean by that? If I said to you, think of, okay, if any of these words ring a bell, Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Bulls, Sharks, Chiefs, Pirates, one of these is going to ring a bell with you. And that's an emotional connection brands have with us. Think about your team. When they win, you are on top of the world. When they lose, don't come near you for the rest of the day. And we don't even know them personally. It's in demand, but really what a brand is, it's a sorting device. So if I said to you, okay, I'm going to offer you two options. I'm going to offer you a Coca-Cola or just a plain bottle, red, generic label, no name brand. And I said, which one are you going to go for? Naturally, the Coca-Cola. Why? Because it's the promise of the joy and the happiness and the thirst quenching that you're going to get from all the promises that Coke has made to us. So now if I said to you, think about people that have become brands. So start to think about who in your mind is a person that's become a brand. These are some that I've selected. So again, if I said to you, right, let's take Oprah. And if I said, what words, images, or experiences come into your mind when you think of Oprah Winfrey? And I'm sure you're going to start to think about things like, she's a humanitarian, amazing listener, she's empathetic. And everyone always goes, well, you've got one and you've got one, and everyone look under your chair. And that's what we think about when Oprah comes into our mind. And Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, said it best. And he said, a brand for a product is like a reputation for a person. So think about that. In the same way that these brands create these words, these images in our minds, so do you. And what we want to talk about this morning is, how do you create the desired words that come into people's minds when they think about you? So in other words, what do you need to do to become a brand? And why is this even important? Being an entrepreneur, you are your business. People are going to buy into you first before they even look at the product or the service that you're trying to sell to them. And it's our sorting device. What's going to make you stand out about maybe someone else in your industry, your competitors? That is your brand. And your brand is the promise you make, implicitly or explicitly. Another way to think about it is, what do people expect of you when they engage with you? Because brands that keep their promises are consistent and trustworthy. And from the minute you engage with customers, suppliers, colleagues, even the ladies at the Woolworths or Spar or Pick and Pay checkout counters, you have a brand. Because you're either branded as the impatient customer who's not listening, or you're branded as the smooth professional who gets the job done. And your brand is a story, and it's a story that helps other people tell themselves a story about you. So your handshake, how you show up online or in person, how long it takes you to deliver the goods are all parts of the story that people are telling themselves about you. And most of the time, these stories aren't true because no one knows you as well as you do. So it's up to us to consistently and persistently show up in a way that amplifies your brand. Because your brand is not what you're saying about yourself, it's what other people are saying about you when you aren't in the room. So you've got to position it, or it will be positioned by others. If I say to you, think about the people you work with, certain customers, certain colleagues, you will start to get words that pop into your mind when you think about them. And it's the same with us, is that people ascribe a vocabulary about you, whether you're consciously involved in the process or not. So where do we begin? How do we start? How do we move forward? And that is really about, if I said, okay, think about 4 words that you want to come into people's mind when they think about you. So in other words, when someone thinks about you, what do you want them to associate with you? What are those words? Is it that you're trustworthy? Is it that you're loyal, creative, dynamic? And then the second step is about thinking, okay, well, if those are the words I want to come into people's minds, what are you doing every single day to demonstrate it? What are you doing to show them you're trustworthy, to show them you are dynamic, loyal, ambitious, you fill in the gap? And sometimes, when 2 words might even feel like it's a lot. Can everyone see my screen? Why am I not? Sorry. What is happening with my... There we go. Right. So we've spoken about what are the words? How do you want to show up? And why is this important? Because we can't leave it up to other people to determine who you are or how you show up. And if you think about it, if you start to create a conscious plan to show up as the best version of yourself every day, you will start to show up like that way. And it's not about manipulation. This is about intention, because we can't walk around with a t-shirt that says dynamic, creative, loyal, trustworthy. Our brand is experiential, and we're experienced moment by moment, second by second, and interaction by interaction with the people you influence and who influences you. And so I really want you to start becoming aware of your behavior, because it's the things we do and say that's going to determine how we show up. And that's when there's a conflict. That's when congruence doesn't happen, is we go, well, I want to show up this way, but if the behavior is not matching that and it's not in alignment, we're never going to show up that way. And so really there's the gap. If you think about, when I walk into a room, how do I think people are, what do I think my first impression is? And what do I want my first impression to be? And that's what we're going to close this morning. So if you think about communicating your brand, every day is an opportunity to reframe people's perceptions of you. Every day is another opportunity you can persuade, motivate, inspire people around you. And we say, don't judge a book by its cover, but we do. And we make these snap judgments. And although we're not doing it on a conscious level, it has a huge impact on our perceptions. And I'm pretty confident that within a few seconds, you've made a decision about me and about what the next 90 minutes is going to be like, what you're going to get out of this. And I haven't said good morning yet. And that's just life. So let's unpack this. What does it mean to be a brand? Our brand is made up of our honor, integrity, skills and knowledge we bring, and consistency. And you're going to hear me say that word a lot this morning. But central to our brand, number one, is accountability. So we need to be incredibly mindful about the choices we make, because we can't go, well, the customer made me angry, so, I could shout at them, or I could lose my temper. And it's about really being mindful about the choices we make every day. And linked to that is self-awareness. And that really is about understanding ourselves. What are our strengths? What are our blind spots? because the sooner we know where we need to focus on, that's how we can start to improve. And lastly, and for me, probably the most important thing is attitude. And attitude is a choice. And it's the choice through which, it's the lens through which we view the world. And you made a choice this morning. Did I wake up with a lens of self-motivation or the lens of self-defeat? And if you think about people you work with, those people with those can-do attitude, those go-givers, they will go above and beyond. Those are the people we want to rally around. And, it doesn't matter what business you're in, it's a people industry. We're dealing with people all the time, whether it's online or face-to-face. And so if you think about, let me ask you a question first. Did anyone see the movie Harry Potter? And I'm assuming some of you are nodding and some of you are shaking your head. So in the movie Harry Potter, there are these creatures called Dementors. And when they walk away from you, it's like the soul's been sucked out of you. And let me ask you, does anyone know someone like that? You have a conversation and they walk away and you feel drained, or you feel like, wow, they are negative. And I'm sure a lot of you are nodding. And unfortunately, some of these people we have to work with, they're our family. But the point of why I bring that up is that is the image that forms in your mind. That person is draining. That person's difficult to work with. And that is why attitude is so incredibly important. And there's going to be days where we feel like, we're stressed. Even now, there's new challenges. COVID has brought up so much. But on the days where you really need to deliver something, it's about understanding, well, who do I want to be today? How do I want to show up? What is the attitude I want to arrive with, despite how we're feeling? That is what sets us apart as a brand. And the other things I want to unpack a little bit further now is physical presence. So how do we show up physically? Virtual presence is every email, text, voice notes, social media. How are we showing up? Interpersonally is how we're dealing with stress and conflict. And social presence is networking. How do we start to create deeper relationships and strengthen our brand? And why I put the slide up is to remind us, you never get to a point where you go, you know what? My brand is at the top of its level. I'm done now. I'm good. We never get to a point where we can stop working on our brand because, look at the people in front of us. They did make some bad choices and fell from grace really quickly. But having said that, we're human and we're fallible and we are going to make mistakes. But it's the way we deal with those mistakes that will set you apart as a powerful brand. So I don't know if you saw this campaign. I think it was about 18 months ago. And what happened is that in the UK, KFC landed up switching suppliers, delivery suppliers, and they ran out of chicken. And instead of putting out a campaign or, a message going, and I think happened to be DHL, they didn't blame and they didn't name and shame and go, oh, it's not our problem. They went, you know what? We're sorry. And they owned their mistake. And they said, this is what we're doing to fix it. This is what we're doing to make sure that we can turn this around as quickly as we can for you. And think about in your business, it's sometimes, we say never waste a good crisis, because it's in those moments, if depending how you sort that out and go, look, there's been a delay. This is what's happened. This is what I'm doing to make sure that we're going to fix this for you. I'm going to update you every 30 minutes. And it's the way we deal with that will step us apart as a brand. And really, branding is not something you do. It's who you are and how you show up. So if we think about our physical presence, because remember, we spoke about Apple. We spoke about the words that come into your mind. Oprah, what words came into your mind? This is about how do you show up in other people's minds. And the message you send out every day is shaped by the way you choose to dress, the way you hold yourself, and the way we connect with others. And we may as well send out a message that projects the best version of yourself. So if we start with something like dress, we can talk about enhancers and detractors. And you can see, if you take a minute and look at the screen, very quickly you can see, okay, obviously there's a big difference here. But dress has got nothing to do with budget. It's got nothing to do with what you are wearing. It's about trust. Because by the way that you show up, you are indicating to that person, I invest in myself. I'm taking the time to show up in a way that projects who I want to be. And so we develop trust with them. And if you think about when you've gone on a plane, essentially you're putting your life in that pilot's hands. But how does that pilot show up? They're in that uniform and they've got that aura of authority around them. And you go, okay, I'm going to trust this person. But imagine the guy on the left showed up and he went, good morning, ladies and gents, really looking forward to this trip to Cape Town. You are on your way out of that plane and looking for another airline as quickly as you can. And it's more than a first impression, but it's about signaling to the people around you, I am capable of greater things. And it extends into authenticity. And one of my favorite authors is Seth Godin, and he said it's when we act the same way, whether or not someone else is looking, showing up as a pro, keeping promises, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't. And I think for me, the rule of thumb about dress is it's about being authentic to the environment, appropriate to the environment, and authentic to yourself. So if you perhaps work in a creative industry like advertising, you're not going to arrive in a suit and tie. If you are dealing with clients that are in a financial corporation or a professional environment, you need to show up in a way that builds trust with them. You've got to resonate with them. And so those are the things we need to think about. But also moving forward from dress is around, it's not only what we say, it's the way that we say it. So that's what verbal is. And nonverbal is what we don't say. And what you're going to hear me talk about today, you're going to go, well, let me say this. It's a series of BLOs. Do you want to guess what a BLO is? A blinding light of the obvious. And you're going to go, well, I know that. Well, I know that. But the question is do we do it? And that is what separates a great brand, is when it's the things we know, but we don't always do. And there was research done at UCLA where Professor Maharabi, and they looked at it and they said, okay, when a message is perceived, how much is the words we use and how much is the way we say it? And I'll send you the slide deck so that you can refer back to these. And really what the slide is saying is that 7% only accounts for the words that come out of our mouth. The rest is the nonverbal, how we saying it, our tone of voice. And so if we think about the verbal, what can we do to make a greater impression? Number one is manners matter. Those simple things like please, thank you, remembering someone's name. Even if someone's doing what they're paid to do, when you acknowledge someone and you go, wow, thanks for getting that done, you show up in a better way. And I love to use the analogy of when you're driving in traffic, which I know seems a bit distant at the moment. But when someone's indicating and you think, I'll be a nice person today, and you let that person come in front of you, all you want to do is see those hazards going off, because that validates your decision going, I let them in and they say thanks. But if they don't say thank you, you're so angry at yourself and you're angry at them. And it's the same thing every day, guys. Also mind what you're shutting down. So next time you have an opportunity, whether, online or in person, but if you're having a brainstorm or a discussion with someone, be mindful of being that person who goes, it's never going to happen. This is impossible. There's no solution. Be that person who's the problem solver. Be that person who can always find a way. Because remember, when that person is always shooting something down, that's how we remember them. And then lastly is be a giver. If someone does do something great, acknowledge them, give them credit where it's due. But what's really interesting to me is the other 55%, the nonverbal, because the second you walk into a room, people are going to start sizing up your physical presence. So how confidently did you walk in? When we get back to a world where we can shake hands, how confidently did you shake hands? And even online, people are making decisions on everything they observe. So what are you telling them? So some of the nonverbals I want to share with you. The first one is about body language. And I'm not sure if you've seen the TED Talk by Amy Cuddy, who's a social psychologist. And they did an experiment and they said, we know mind influences body. Can body influence mind? And what she did is she got people to stand in a series of power poses. If you see the top row, so the victory pose, or the Wonder Woman, the lady in the middle. And what they found is after 2 minutes, your testosterone was boosted and cortisol, your stress hormone, went down. And so what the research showed is that when you've got to do something, a courageous conversation, a presentation, a pitch, 2 minutes before, stand in a power pose, boost your physiology. And it's not just, don't do that on camera, but it's the way that you hold yourself is not only about standing in a powerful way, it's understanding sometimes we stand in a powerless way too often. And if you think about if you're having an online meeting with someone and they show up to you and they slouched and their hands is like this, and you can see that it's showing you, I don't really want to be there. And it's, all these things, you may not be consciously doing it, but your body language is going to signal these things. And so we've really got to be aware of it. Some of the other non-verbals, eye contact. And guys, and I'm really not talking about in the context of today, but when you show up for a meeting and you're trying to build a relationship, especially during this time, if you can make eye contact with someone, it signals to them, I'm with you, I'm listening, I want to connect with you. So now more than ever, please show up with the camera on. Other nonverbals, participation. Let me start with preparation. So if you're meeting a new customer, did you go onto LinkedIn and learn a little bit more about them, their business, their industry? What do they enjoy? If you look at some of the things that maybe they write articles and you can see, I don't know, they're into global warming. And you said, wow, I saw that you post a lot of articles about this. I found this specific book really interesting. Now think about how the impression of you has changed. Or going into the industry, doing some research, coming with the right questions, because there's a great quote that says often all that stands between you and what you want is a better set of questions. But then it's also participation. So maybe you've done your research, but when there comes the opportunity for you to add value, maybe with your team, maybe in a specific situation, and you go, this is what I think and this is why, that is how you start to show up in a way that shows who you are, shows your contribution. Because and we all have that voice in our head that goes, don't say anything, you're going to sound stupid. If we let that win, we start to become no-name brands and we start to become labeled as, he or she's really sweet, they're really kind, but they never contribute in meetings. They're great note takers. And a no-name brand works for, Pick and Pay washing powder, but not for you. So push past that fear, and we'll talk about fear later, but make sure that you are showing your worth, showing your value. And then it's about, before we get to that, and a really big one in terms of the nonverbal, and probably one of the most important ones for me, is being punctual. Because if you show up late, even 5 minutes late, you are signaling to that person, I don't respect your time, I couldn't plan. And that may not be what you intend. And so just take that extra time, and it works in online and offline as well. So log on 10 minutes before, check your link, check that you've got good Wi-Fi signal. Maybe you can't put the camera on because of Wi-Fi, fine, but make sure that you're prepared and ready to go. If it's 10 o'clock, don't log in 1 minute to 10 scrambling for it, because it starts to affect our confidence. Same thing if you're arriving at someone's offices and you don't give a good amount of time to get there and you're still signing in when you're supposed to be sitting in their boardroom, you start off flustered. And again, you signal, and what they are probably thinking is, if you can't show up on time just for a meeting, how do I trust you with my business? How do I trust you with my customers? And so it's much bigger than, oh, it's just 10 minutes. So really be aware of that. And the last thing in terms of the physical is our work, because your work is the currency of you. That is how you physically demonstrate who you are. And so some things around work that I wanted to go through. Number one, consistency. So we can't shoot lights out sometimes and then drop the ball another time. Of course, life happens, but it's about being consistent in who we are, how we show up, being transparent. So the sooner you can manage an expectation, if something is going wrong, if an order is delayed, and especially now with COVID, there are new challenges. But the sooner we can manage an expectation and go, look, this is what's happened, and do it telephonically, which brings me to human touch, especially now, we've got to build connections, build relationships, pick up the phone when you can, send an email to cover your tracks, but especially if you're delivering any kind of bad news, you want to have that conversation. Pick up the phone, ask for a Zoom meeting. And just what can we do to build trust? And I think more than ever now this is about the long game. This is about what can we do to build trust with our existing clients. And I'll touch on this a little bit more detail later on. And to close this section with a great quote is again from Seth Godin, and he said, "Excellence is what keeps you awake. Excellence is what lets you sleep well. It's a moving target. Excellence is that which knows no bounds. Excellence always. If not excellence, what? If not excellence now, when?" And excellence is not an aspiration. Excellence is the next 5 minutes. And guys, I know I'm covering a lot in a short space of time, but I want you to leave here with questions. Looking further into yourself, because everything I'm talking about is what are you doing to create the experience that you want to have on other people? What are you doing to show them this is who I am? And how do you show up interpersonally? How do you deal with stress and conflict? And this is really important because you may tick the boxes in terms of the verbal, in terms of the nonverbal, but the way you deal with stress and conflict could indicate to someone, you know what, they're really difficult to work with, and that becomes part of your brand. And so the way we should start thinking about this is know yourself, seek first to understand and assume positive intent. So think about you've walked into the office in the morning, or interacted with someone, or even on Zoom, and they seem really not their normal self or quite off. We immediately start thinking, I've done something wrong, I've let them down, what did I do? But we don't know, when I say assume positive intent, maybe they just had bad news that morning. Maybe they've had to deal with something. Maybe they had a fight with their partner and it's put them in a bit of a spin. So before you put it down to you, ask yourself, what could possibly be going on? Because everyone's living a story we know nothing about. And the way to deal with conflict is a simple rule. React to the outcome, not to the event. So now you're getting a better idea. What do I want to be known for? React to that. And I'll share a story that demonstrates what I'm saying. So it must have been 2 years ago now, and I was called into a charity organization, not Ort, and they called me in to say, can we brainstorm some ideas for fundraising? And I said, no problem. And I arrived at their offices on time. It was a Monday morning. It was pouring with rain. And as I'm walking through the door, the woman that I was meeting, I'll call her Jill, was walking past me. And I said to her, Jill, don't we have a meeting now? And she said, you know what? All I want to do is go to the clicks and go home. I've got such a migraine. And I went, oh, and where's Carol? And she said, I don't know, there was some emergency. And she left the building about 15 minutes ago. And guys, I promise you, I took a breath and I said to myself, what do you want to be known for? And I said, no problem. I walked her to her car and I said, next time, we'll go to my offices. I do good cappuccinos. I really hope you're feeling better. And she was appreciative of the way that I dealt with that. Don't get me wrong. Let's take a step back. When I walked through those doors and she canceled that meeting and she didn't bother to phone me, she didn't bother to say, look, let's do it another day, I was frustrated because, like you, I manage my diary, I manage my time, I shuffle things around so I can be there on time. But I had to override the frustration because I knew what was more important. And that's the outcome. If I reacted to the event and I said, but what a waste of my time, you could have phoned me, I would be branded as a really rude person, even if it was on her to let me know. And it's about pressing that mental pause button. Literally those few seconds where you take that breath to respond rather than react. And think about something like, okay, who's got a rude email? Who's got a rude WhatsApp? Who's got a rude SMS? And I know you're all nodding. What do we want to do? You want to go, oh, and you want to respond straight away because you're angry. But that is the difference between sabotaging your brand and instead write the mail, but then save it in your drafts. Go back to it the next morning and then ask yourself, am I still going to send this? And I'm pretty sure you won't. And it's just building in that space. And you may feel like it's weakness, but it's not. And taking that time or saying to someone, you know what? I'm really not comfortable with what you've just said. Can we touch base this afternoon? Can I just think about it? And let's re-engage tomorrow. And think about, firstly, get yourself out of the emotional state. Because whenever we react on emotion, we're going to say something we regret. Get yourself to a position where you can speak from fact. This is what you said. This is the situation. This is what I think. And then you can respond in a way that's going to get it to an outcome that you both want, not just, well, do I want to just be right? And be aware of your internal monitoring system. So your body has the technology to know before you do, how are you feeling? So think about it. When you get cross, do you feel it in your stomach? Do you feel it in your fists? Literally, my throat feels like it's closing. Do you feel it in your face? Your body has got the software to let you know. So just start to be aware of it. And I said this is self-awareness. And it's often about looking in the mirror and going, okay, is there this constant stream of conflict in my life? Is it always someone else's fault? Am I always blaming? And guys, this is not pointing the finger. This is about you understanding yourself so that you don't let the way you deal with stress and conflict sabotage what you're trying to achieve. And it's asking yourself this question, and I'll leave you to read it. Is it consistent with how you want to show up? And some things in terms of when we think about dealing with people, stress and conflict, feedback's a major one. And I think we're always going to have a position in our businesses where sometimes you are the one giving feedback and sometimes we're the ones receiving feedback. And that'll change through the journey of our careers. But if you think about how you're delivering feedback to someone, you want to start with all the positives. This is what you've done really well. This is what I'm really happy with. The one area I think we can improve on is X. Now I'm open to receiving your feedback. If you started and you said, the way you dealt with that client was shocking, I've shut down. I'm not going to hear anything you have to say. So think about when you're delivering the feedback, and also the way to grow into an incredible brand, and as scary as it is asking for feedback. How did you think that meeting went? How did you think I did on that pitch? And when you ask for the feedback, and it might be something we don't want to hear, say thank you. Wow, thanks for that insight. I hadn't thought about it that way. Because the sooner we can take the advice and use it to build and grow ourselves, so long as it's done in a way that's there to honor you, not to break you, that'll make a massive difference. Now, let me ask, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Does anyone find it hard to say no? And you don't even have to answer. Thank you, East. And I think the reason why I bring this up is because I'm saying we want to show up in a certain way. Who do you want to be? How do you show up? And often we think, well, if I say no, I'm going to derail that. I'm going to sabotage myself. But if we say yes to everything, we're going to start to damage our own brand, because we're going to start to compromise quality for quantity, and we're going to start to burn out. So it's not about not saying no. It's thinking about the way that we want to do it. And saying no makes us feel bad. We feel guilty. What if they don't like me? What if they don't use me again? But there's something I spoke about, the book that I co-authored, and we speak about something called the yes sandwich. And it's got 3 steps. Positively acknowledge the person's intent. Step 2, you graciously say no. And step 3 is optional, where you can provide an alternative. So in the real world, it would look like this. If someone says, don't you want to come to this online networking event? It's after hours. You could say, thanks for the invitation and for thinking of me. Unfortunately, this is my family time. This is my downtime. I'm already committed. But please think of me for the next one. I would love to be there. And in this way, we're saying no in a way that honors the person. They don't feel like they can't approach us again. So now, if you are one of those people that you cannot say no, it's not possible, what about saying to the person, let me check my calendar and I'll come back to you? Because think about when someone says, can you get this done for me? The super achiever in us wants to go, I'll do it tomorrow. But you know that the way your calendar is, you don't have the capacity. But these words are coming out of your mouth, agreeing to, and you're thinking, oh my God, what did I just do to myself? So when someone says, can you do something? Manage the expectation. Don't assume it has to be done the next day. Say to them, you know what? I'm absolutely chock-a-block until Monday. Would Tuesday morning work for you? And I promise you, most of the time they'll end up saying, yeah, no problem at all. So check with them. Obviously, there are times where something's urgent and we drop the ball, we drop what's on our plate, we do what we can, we show up and we deliver. But that should be the exception. So just by managing that expectation and going, okay, when you absolutely need this by, because you don't want to, again, sabotage the quality of something because it's beyond that one time. If you turn in something substandard, it's not based on what you did previously. Oh, 5 times before they did it really well. We're as good as the last thing we deliver. And think about weekends as well, guys. Now more than ever during COVID, our downtime is so incredibly important. And so ask yourself, am I saying yes out of guilt or fear? Because then it's probably a no. Think when you agree to do something, or you agree to go to someone's braai or function, and you land up there and you're thinking, why did I say yes? I could be with my kids. I could be with my family. I could be relaxing. So be really deliberate about what you're agreeing to, because if you give away your yes too easily, you are the one who's suffering. Be really deliberate about what we're saying yes to and what we're saying no to. And once you give permission to stop trying to do it all, then you can make the contribution on the things that really matter. Even Warren Buffett said, the difference between successful and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. So again, this is just about asking yourself questions. Okay, what happens to me under stress? How do you react when you're stressed? What about when other people are stressed? And if you know you snap, you irritable, as all of us are, put yourself in a different room. Say to your team, say to your family, look, I'm under the gun at the moment. It's not you. Okay. I'm just dealing with something. I've got a lot on my plate today. So people know, so that you are not, innocently, someone comes and innocently asks you something and you bite their head off. So the more we know how we are, the better we can show up. And the last section before I give us a break is it's not only how we show up interpersonally, dealing with people, it's how we show up intrapersonally and how we deal with ourselves. Because confidence starts in the mind, and it starts with the thoughts we tell ourselves. And what we communicate to ourselves has a huge impact on how we project ourselves to the rest of the world. And that self-talk, that inner critic, when those voices show up and go, you don't deserve to be here, you're not good enough, who's going to give this to you? You've got to be really aware of that, because we all have it. And it's 3 steps you've got to take. Number 1, the steps are stop, challenge, choose. So stop yourself, become aware of that thought, then challenge it. I'm not enough. Is that based in reality, or is it my own irrational thinking? And then lastly, choose a better thought to replace it. And I'm not saying use, false positive psychology and go, I'm the greatest, because you're going to go, no, you're not. You're not going to believe it. So what do we do? Because what's so critically important is to get yourself out of that bad headspace and change your focus immediately. And the way we do that is through an anchor thought. And an anchor thought could be an image. It could be a word, a phrase, something that's going to move you very, very quickly. So maybe perhaps you're doing a courageous conversation, a presentation, a pitch. Think, close your eyes, and before you go in, see yourself shaking that person's hand. See them nodding and encouraging you if it's an online thing, so that's the end result. Put yourself into a space of calm. Let's go back to the old days. If you were flying on an airplane going to go visit your mom and you are petrified of flying, when you close your eyes and you see yourself having lunch with your mom, that's the image you want to put into your mind, because it grounds you before you let your mental, that mental space spin out. And guys, this is so important because it's owning the story you tell yourself, the thoughts we tell ourselves. And what is the story you're telling yourself? Because that's going to determine how we show up. Is your story, I'm too old, I'm too young, I should have done this in my 20s, I'm shocking with technology, I'm an introvert, I'm bad at public speaking? Your mind is always eavesdropping. And if you fight for those limitations, you get to keep them. So, what are you calling yourself every day? I'm a warrior. I'm so anxious. This is again painting the picture, and why your story is so important is it's going to make the difference between what you show up to and what you don't. If you want to start being a more powerful brand and you think maybe videos is something that would benefit my business, but you think, oh, no, I'm shocking in front of camera, you're not going to do that. Or you're not going to go for a position or an opportunity because you've told yourself you can't. And you may be doing everything right in terms of verbal, non-verbal conflict, but it is the voice in our heads that's going to determine really how we show up. Because if you are stepping into a situation and you're telling yourself, I don't deserve to be here, that filters through everything. The way you're showing up, the attitude, the body language, and that's how we become an incredibly powerful brand first. And to start to close off the mental side is, you know, anxiety is rife during this time. And I'm not talking about chronic anxiety, it's those looping thoughts that we get every day. And there's a great book called Emotional Equations by Chip Conley. And he said, really, all anxiety is what we don't know times what we can't control. And anxiety hits really a high level, highly successful people. And I know when I get hit with anxiety, it's because I'm too future focused or my desire for control is too amplified. And so, what Chip says is that when we get into the spin, it's about having this anxiety audit and going, okay, what do I know? What don't I know? What can I influence and what I can't control? And the sooner we let go of the things we can't control now, the sooner we can start to take charge of our brands, our lives, what we can do, what you don't know, where can you get information? There's so much available online at the moment. And guys, I think this COVID has put us into a big anxious spin at the moment because there's a lot we cannot deal with. And if you're in an industry that's been highly affected, and I know you're thinking, okay, well, what could I do during this time? So focus on what you can control. This gives you the opportunity to show leadership in crisis and uncertainty. You can schedule in time every day to network. You can schedule in 15 minutes every day to reach out to your current base, to reach out to new people. Maybe you're stuck in terms of what you can deliver, but what can you do to add value? Can you start a newsletter? Can you send an article to someone? Can you create a video, share a video? What can you do that they think, wow, Tracy's been amazing. That is so incredibly valuable to me. Can you pivot? Can you take a course? Can you put what you're doing online? And guys, this is the most forgiving time. No one's expecting highly polished, highly, curated, beautifully edited content. It's us, our cameras, Zoom. This is the space to do anything that you want to do at this time and work on your brand, build your brand. That's what you can do now. Can you work on the business? So maybe you've been too busy to stop and go, okay, well, what are the processes I'm currently using? What's working? What's not? Why am I getting bottlenecks here? Can you use this time just to press pause a little bit and see how you can improve the process so when we do get back to normal, you can hit the ground running? Can you collaborate? And also, can we build new skills? You've got to have a growth mindset that goes, okay, maybe I'm not great at video now, but what can I do? How do I practice? How do I put myself into that space? And really, the way that we can move forward is about acknowledging past successes, because all too quickly we go, oh, yeah, I did that. Oh, yeah, I did that. But success is incremental nudges, and that's how we build confidence. It's about acknowledging, wow, I did that. Because I did that, I can move on to the next thing. And really, I think I'm going to finish this last slide, and then let's just take a break until maybe just after 12. But guys, this is about intention. Who do you want to show up as? How do you want to show up? How do you want to remember this time? How do you want your customers to remember you during this time? And that's when we got to be deliberate in terms of what are we doing to close the gap. So let's take I'm sorry, I'm only going to give you a short break. If we can come back, say just after 12, or if I, yes.
Please would you repeat the quote by Chip Connolly?
The one by Chip Conley. Oh, it was the slide. So it's anxiety equals powerlessness times uncertainty. So it's what you don't know times what you can't control.
Thank you.
Great. Trace, I think let's take a break, guys. I'm aware of everyone who, we're sitting for a long time. If we can come back, say, just after 12, then I can maybe do the last 15, 20 minutes. And then if there's any questions, we can go through those. But let's take a quick break. Let's stand. Let's check your phones, because I'm sure that's worrying you guys a bit. Let me stop sharing, and we will come back, say, just after 12. Is that fine? Super. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Thanks, Dory.
See you in a bit.
Hi. Hi. Do you want those mushrooms?
Okay, Trey, should we start to kick off?
Yes, please. I see we still have everyone with us, so we're good to start again.
Great. So welcome back, everyone. So what we've spoken about so far this morning is how we're showing up intrapersonally to ourselves, but interpersonally, how we're dealing with people. And to change track a little bit, it's also important to think about our virtual presence. So that really is about every SMS, WhatsApp, email, social media are all channels about how we consistently show up. And that's really where consistency is so important, is that it's not only about how we show up in person. And I think COVID's brought this online into, a much greater emphasis and focus, but it's equally important. And we need to be that same brand. And if you think about something as simple as mail, right? We get mail every day. When you get your mail, you've got three choices. Are you going to save it? Are you going to delete it? Or are you going to read it immediately? And the way we make that decision is by the sender. Because when you see that email come into your inbox, like I know for me, when I get something from Tracy, I'm going, I know that it's valuable. I know it's credible, and I will make sure I open it immediately. So you need to think, when my mail lands in someone's inbox, how do I want them to perceive me? And guys, you can read this in your own time, but it's the little things, the email bugbears where spelling mistakes, they spelled your name wrong, you made it too long, there's no spell check. Think when someone sends you a mail and they've spelled your name wrong and the body of the mail is incorrect, you immediately question the credibility of the content. And these are, again, things we know we should, but sometimes we're in a rush or in a hurry, and the mail doesn't sound, I always call it the gremlins, the and the us fall off. So just be really, really deliberate. And it's the same thing in terms of text messages, WhatsApp messages, being really aware that, WhatsApp used to only be for personal life, but we're speaking to our customers, we're speaking to our suppliers on WhatsApp as well. Be aware of the obvious things that this is another touch point. Is this in line with who I want to be? So a big one that I wanted to talk about today is online meetings when we're showing up for Zoom. So these are some points that really make a big difference. Number one is be punctual, and I've spoken about that. Prepare, so whether that's logging on earlier, getting the link, checking the Wi-Fi, preparing for the meeting, having an agenda. Why are we having this meeting? Everybody's time is tight. The more you can prepare, the better, obviously the better for everyone. Something like making email effective. Have you ever received a mail that said FYI or said thoughts, ? They didn't give you an explanation. Now you have to go through the 6-chain, base case email and go through it from the bottom, making sure hopefully you don't leave something off. So be effective for people, dress for the day. And I think, for me, whether I'm meeting someone, whether I'm seeing someone, when I've got a meeting, I show up the same way as if I was going to do it in person. I'm not saying dress to the nines, but, understand that how you show up on that meeting is all they've got to build an impression of you. So again, make sure that it's consistent with how you want to be seen. Don't multitask. So don't go into a call and start, Googling or surfing something because they can hear when your attention goes. And really, this is it's an opportunity to go, how do I show leadership in crisis and uncertainty? Because there's been crisis before. We've had uncertainty before. But, it's about thinking, okay, am I going to be that person that's going to lead them through this? Because you're not only leading your clients, you're leading yourself, you're leading your family. Use, great resilience and strength is born out of challenge. So again, it's tough and it's difficult, but see it as the opportunity to emerge as someone even greater strength, greater resilience to push you forward. Something to remember in terms of email, it doesn't have nonverbal. So be really careful about why you're using mail. If something sounds, could this be misinterpreted as being aggressive, or could this be misinterpreted, rather pick up the phone. As I said, I'm going to send you guys the slides so you can read through this. But this is your business card. People want to find you. The first thing they're going to do is go onto your website, go onto your social media profiles. Is it consistent? Is it the person, when they go onto those places, are they going to see that, this is what they're promising? Is your website consistent? What is it delivering? And it doesn't have to be fancy, but again, it's the first touch point that they're getting of you. And be on LinkedIn. So I'm not going to talk about it for long, but you're expected to be on LinkedIn. People want to investigate you first. This is the first place they're going to come. So you don't have to go overboard, but a nice summary, a good photo, just a, normal head and shoulders shot. I use LinkedIn for thought leadership. So I post articles, I publish articles. There is such incredible networking and way to find new prospects, new clients. It's not about looking for a job. So take some time and really build up your LinkedIn profile. And the last thing in terms of the social media side is just be aware of profile photos. And it's not just about profile photos on your social media, but think about your WhatsApp, guys. Think about LinkedIn. So again, if you're talking to someone, a customer, is your WhatsApp photo showing the person that you want to be? Because sometimes we think, it's just for my buddies. There's me doing this random thing on a Saturday night back in the day. And I'm sure everybody on here today has got really appropriate photos, but maybe you're engaging with someone who doesn't. Maybe you can see something and you're going, you know what? This isn't serving your brand. Maybe you should think about this kind of a photo. And just don't have an empty space, especially on LinkedIn. If you can, show a photo, because people build relationships with people they trust. And I know for me, I feel like, well, if you're not showing yourself, what are you hiding? So it may just seem like, I don't want to put a photo of myself, but the behind can make a big difference in terms of how you perceived. So this I wanted to share with you because my husband said to me, this is his client on LinkedIn. And I said, yeah, what's the big deal? And he said, this is his WhatsApp photo. So again, it's the stuff we know, but that we don't always implement. And again, it'll have a huge impact on how we're perceived. So the last section that I want to come to, and probably the most important, especially during this time, is our social presence. Who knows about us? What are we doing to deepen relationships? How are we networking? And often networking's got this bad stigma to it. You know, we picture these after hours events where we had to go walk around and collect business cards, and we probably never used the business cards. But networking comes down to three things: connection, conversation, and collaboration. And if you're an introvert, connection can be a little bit daunting. Conversations are the currency of change, and the way that we are going to build relationships, especially during this time, is engaging in conversations, because it's about connecting on a human level. This is not just about my business, what I can sell you. This is about connecting, not even in a vulnerable space, but about what's important to you, what matters to you. How can I be a go-giver? That's networking. It's not what's in it for me. What can I get from you? It's what can I do to serve, to contribute? And conversation is the way that we do that. It's the currency of change. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but think about things that make a powerful conversation. If you're engaging with someone, and they say something, and you go, okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that you think I handled this like this, and they'll either go yes, or they'll go no, that's not what I mean. And so let's check. Be aware of one-upping someone. Have you ever said to someone, geez, I'm stressed during this time, and they go, you stressed? You don't know what I'm going through at the moment. You sick? You have no idea what I'm going through. And there's one-upping, damaging your brand. You don't want to interact with that person. Words like avoid, don't make it personal. This is your problem. This is what you always do. So again, I'll send you these things, but be aware in conversation that we use in conversation to further our brand, not to sabotage us. So what stops us? I mean, we know conversations are good. We know we should be. So often we say, well, I don't know how to. I don't know this person. But if you think everyone has a past, a present, and a future. So if Cheryl and I had a conversation after this, and I could say, Cheryl, what did you do before you started this business? I could say, what's your biggest challenge at the moment? Or I could say, what are you working towards? What are you aspiring to? What are you doing for Rosh Hashanah? And there's always a touch point. Do you know what I mean? There's a starting point. Get the person to speak about themselves. And often we think, well, I don't have time to network, especially, it's COVID and it's hectic. But guys, you got to network most when you need it least. Don't, there's a saying, dig the well before it's empty. Communicate to people, reach out to people now, not when you need them, because then you come across as being shallow. Oh, now they want something from me. Now they're launching something. But what really stops us is fear. And it's fear of the unknown outcome. It's fear of the discomfort of reaching out, of having a conversation. What if they don't like me? What if they don't like what I have to say? What if my business isn't okay? What if the pitch isn't good? And we find all these what if reasons, and we eventually convince ourselves not to reach out. But success is measured by the amount of uncomfortable conversations and the amount of uncomfortable actions you're willing to take. And guys, it's often the thing you fear the most, which is the thing you most need to do. Having that conversation, phoning that person, having that pitch, reaching out to somebody. You know what it is. What have you been avoiding because of fear? And then determine the worst outcome. What is the worst case? They say no. So what? At least it might be a no, not now, but now you're on their radar. Now they know about you. And, again, it's the thing we fear the most that we always most need to do. So who do you need to reach out to? How can you tap into this Ord network more than you have been? Who have you wanted, and it's about reaching out, and you could say, Miss or Mr. So-and-so, you've navigated this industry so incredibly well. Do you have any advice or guidance for me now? And if you approach it that way, people will make time for you. It's if you go, well, what did you do? Or can you give me your client list? No chance. But when we approach someone with honor and integrity, they will want to help us. And guys, this is about how do we move from our comfort zone. So I gave the cat out of the bag, but if I go back a step and I said, everything you've got now, the business, your finance, your world is sitting in your comfort zone. But everything you want is sitting in the courage zone. And I think that's where, this is what calls on being a powerful brand now, is that, yes, I'm this person now, but who do I want to be? And a lot of the time, what can get us from a comfort zone to a courage zone is to think of your future self as two separate people. So, if I said to you, are you the same person you were 5 years ago? I'm pretty sure you're going to say, no, I'm not the same person. And so don't assume the you in 5 years is going to be the same as now. And if you see them as two different people and you sit down and you really think about, okay, what is my future self? What are they doing? How are they showing up? What's the business like? Where am I living? And you see it as two separate people. That pushes you to courage, because the person you are today and the decisions you need to make today is what's going to become that, is how you're going to shape it. And, if you think back to, okay, what are the words that I want to have on my list? What do I want people to know me as? And right now, being someone they can trust, being a trustworthy brand is the most important thing you can do. And trust is about credibility and consistent behavior. What am I doing to show up, to be reliable, to keep the promise that I'm making, so that you can develop trust? Because it's the people who have the greatest trust that will continue. And often, an interesting question I'll bring up that came up in the last session is people are going, well, I'm caught between, I've got my current clients, but what am I doing to create new clients? And the more that you can show your current clients now, I'm here for you during this time, I'm adding value during this time, that they can build the trust they've got with you, because it's much harder to get new customers. Again, that's how you're going to show up and walk out of this a much stronger brand. And guys, listening, what is one way that you can build trust? Listen. And it sounds like, oh, of course I'm listening, but listening is incredibly active. And when you engage in a conversation, not only with your clients, but with people you're building relationships with, home, family, colleagues, are you listening, or are you waiting for your turn to speak? Or are you thinking to yourself, okay, how can I fix this? Because a lot of the time, and I think especially in crisis and uncertainty, we just want a sounding board. We just want to phone and go, this is what I'm battling with at the moment. Not to get advice, but just to go, this is what I'm dealing with. And often when we get it out, we feel a lot better about it. So I'm going to send you this so you can see. But the two last points I want to make before I leave room for questions is, this is our careers today. It's not the linear ladder where we worked our ways up, and especially being entrepreneurs. Your business will change, your business will pivot, new opportunities come. And every opportunity gives you another way to reinvent yourself as a brand, because it's new projects, new people, new skills. And it's not about not being authentic, but it's reinvention. Okay, who do I need to be now? We've heard people that have done the most remarkable things during this period because circumstance led them to do that. But I think it's about asking yourself, okay, what am I doing to be relevant now? How am I remaining relevant? Skill-wise, am I reading the right stuff? Am I staying abreast of industry news? What are the trends that I need to know? But it's also about staying relevant to yourself. And especially during this time of uncertainty, are you listening to podcasts? Are you listening to audiobooks? What are you doing to inspire yourself, to keep yourself going on the tough days? Because there are tough days and it feels like, what am I doing? I mean, in the normal, kind of normal pre-COVID, we always felt that as entrepreneurs, is this really worth it? And it is, but you've also got to make sure you are lifting yourself in the journey. And this is the essence of what branding is. This is the essence of what I've spoken about today, is that build a good name. Keep your name clean. Don't make compromises. Don't worry about making a bunch of money or being successful. Be concerned with doing good work. And if you can build a good name, eventually that name will be its own currency. And Woody Allen said 80% of life is just showing up. And Tom Peters, who's a branding guru, said showing up also means starting. So I'd say, look, in the old days, did you show up at the gym today? Because think about it, when you used to go, that was 80% of the challenge was getting there, because all you had to do was the workout. And it's the same with opportunity, is that you are 80% of the way there just by showing up to it. And this is really about creating the best version of yourself and showing up as the best version of yourself every day. So what we've looked at is our brand is the culmination of everything you do and everything you say. And what I'm asking you today is think about, what do I want to be known for? And act congruently. Think to yourself, who do I need to reach out to in my network? What are the relationships I need to grow? And take action. And I assure you that if you do, you will have a phenomenal personal brand and truly own your space. So really, for me, thank you to Tracy and the team. I'm going to stop sharing and come in. I hope I've left some time. I've left exactly bang on 10 minutes. For any questions, guys, I know I've spoken about a lot of stuff in a short space of time, but branding is not a simple process. It's a 360. And again, it's about looking at, and I think today is about saying, okay, where am I really doing well? Where are areas of improvement? And it's a work in progress. So Trace, I'm going to stop talking and hand over to you if there are any questions.
Laurie, thank you so much. I've been monitoring the chat box. There are no questions. Just one that popped in a little bit earlier from Philip. He said, what does LDJ mean on the slide that you showed?
Look, don't judge. The way of conversation, look, don't judge. Because I think often we do that. And I said, we judge a book by its cover, or we assume a lot. We meet someone and we think, well, this person can't help me. I think we've got an idea on our mind of what we think, who could help us? What does this person look like? How should they be showing up? And, often we can get absolutely astounded if we give someone a chance, or if we see them in a lens for who they are, not what we think they should be. So that is the look, don't judge.
Thank you. Laurie, I've been part of many of the Orchard boot camps, and the slide that was most prevalent for me today was the listen part, because when you're actively involved in a live environment, you often miss so many valuable, vital points of what you have shared with us this morning. So today, personally, really gave me the opportunity to listen and focus on everything that you said. And I love the way that you started, how you had moved from branding products to branding people. I think that you've shared so much value with us this morning. I think we all need to try and move away from the fear and out of our comfort zone and into our courage zone. So the businesses that have joined us this morning, we wish you an incredibly successful journey on the AltJet program. For me, it's always an honor and a privilege to spend time with people like Laurie. I am so fortunate to work for an organization that provides such skill and vital learning elements to the broader community. And on behalf of myself and the Orchard team, we thank you, Laurie, as always, for your valuable time, your expertise on your subject content. And
I've just spotted Philip's comment, and if we've got a few minutes, I'd love to respond to it. You said, how would you react to a mail headed for your attention with all the exclamation marks? So Philip, can I just ask you, did you receive that mail?